in the front. You're always my people. So, hi, we're here. This is the first bookstore I've come to with the new book. This is my launch. The book just came out today, and you're going to And for any of you who haven't read the Pendericks books, I'm going to talk about them just a little bit. There was the first one, which came out a long time ago when you guys, how old were you in 2005? Yeah, when she was 3 years old, too young to read them. And it was about 4 sisters and their dad who went on vacation, and they met a very interesting boy there, and I'm going to talk a little more later about that very interesting boy, because we have a couple special guests here tonight, so that's just a hint. And it was a wonderful summer adventure, and people liked the book, and so I was allowed to write a second book, which was really exciting, and that was called The Pendericks on Garden Street. And in that one, the 4 sisters were at home, and now I'm going to say that one of the things that I have a whole lot of trouble with when I talk about these books is giving away the story. So how many of you have read Pendericks on Garden Street? There are some people who haven't. Okay, then we all have to be really careful, especially me, because my mouth runs like crazy, and when we're asking questions, to not give away the end of Garden Street. So we'll just say that they were home in that one, and their father began dating, which was very strange, but they made it funny and fun, and that was what happened in the Pendericks on Garden Street. Now we come to the Pendericks at Point Mouette, which is my new book, and none of you have read it, right? Has anybody read it? Have any of you? Not you guys. That's my little coterie back there. This book takes place in Maine, and it's another summer vacation. It's the summer after the first book, so it really takes place a couple of weeks after the end of the second book, which we all know what happened, but we're not going to talk about. And for those of you who know the Pendericks sisters pretty well, Rosalind does not go along. Rosalind goes to New Jersey with her friend, and something's happening in the third row. Which I ignore. Yeah, okay. Rosalind does not go along. She gets sent away because she's been the older sister and has been taking care of her younger sisters all her life, or well, since their mother died, which was a long time, 5 years. And her father thinks that she needed a break, so she gets sent off on her own adventure, which happens out of the book, which means that Skye is in charge. And those of you who know Skye know that it's going to be a rocky road for her. She's the second sister. She doesn't like taking care of people. She likes feeding people up if they give her trouble, but she really, the whole, like, getting Maddie's teeth brushed at night stuff really doesn't go over too well with her. So that is the setup for the book. I have to tell you that Jeffrey from the first book does show up again, and that's not a surprise because I think they put it on the back cover. It's sort of a surprise in the book, but it doesn't work when they put things on the back cover. So he shows up, and it's another whole summertime thing again. And let me see, what can I say about Maine? Have any of you been to Maine? You have? Wow. You know, it's funny, the second time I went there, I was out on a boat because I knew that at one point I'd want the Pendericks to go out on a boat because you really can't go to Maine and not do that. And I was watching, you've been to Maine? All by yourself like that, right? I was watching, there was one girl around your age, she looked like she was about 9 or 10, and so I was watching to see what she did, because I thought, well, maybe this is what Jane would do. She had this big net, and it looked like a big butterfly net, and we were on this big boat, and she was going like this, and I was like, oh, my goodness, I'm not sure I want to use this child as a role model. But I finally ended up talking to her, and she was from San Francisco, and she'd read the book, and I thought she'd be here, but she's obviously not here. It turned out that she thought she was going to catch fish with it. And since the boat was like a really high boat, she wasn't even near the water. I'm really glad she didn't, because I would have wanted her to throw them back, but I didn't have anyone in the book do that. But so I got to go to Maine for research. It's a beautiful place, those of you who've been there. On the coast.
Which part?
Which part? I was east of Booth Bay. Yeah, so I wasn't very far out. You know Booth Bay?
Yeah, by Bristol.
By Bristol?
South Bristol.
I don't know that well. I would just go, I found this little place called Ocean Point, and I renamed it Point Mouette. And I got to go there all the time and take pictures of the sky and smell the smells and make sure I got it right for when I wrote about it. So now I'm going to get to the special part of our program, which is basically based on the fact that people are always very interested in where I get my names and who I base my characters on. So there are two people here that are part of that, and both stories are very embarrassing. I'll tell the most embarrassing one first. You've all read the first book, right? Yes. And you know there's a mean lady in there, right? Well, when I was in high school, my two best friends, the three of us hung out when we were juniors, and we were seniors, we all split apart, and I thought that they had kicked me out of the friendship. And I never got over it, and I had nightmares about it for 30 years. And this was so awful to me that I gave the mean mother the first name of one of those girls. Her name was Brenda. And just when the book was being published, when it was too late to do anything about it, Brenda got back in touch with me. I'd gotten the story completely wrong. She's a wonderful person. And this is my very public apology. Would you please say hello to everybody? To her, I put her in twice in this third book. Once I used her last name for somebody. Actually, I think it was somebody who stole a boyfriend, but it wasn't a bad thing. And then I used her grown-up last name as somebody who was seeing the Pendericks, Mrs. Domer. So when you see Mrs. Domer, remember that that's really nice, Brenda. Now the other story is not as embarrassing, but it's very romantic and sweet. Yes. You're interested in that? Cool. How old are you? Oh, okay. Good. Okay. So, when I was in 6th grade, I had my first love. And I was just trying to explain this to Brenda earlier, and she said it was a crush. I said it was not a crush. It was a love. And something happened, and he dumped me. And I never knew why it happened at this. We used to get sent to these ballroom dancing classes, and we went to this one night, and he didn't ask me to dance the whole thing. It was all over. My heart was broken. And though we went all the way through high school together, I never really, we never talked about it, and I said nothing except hi. He ended up being the football captain, of course, the president of our class, of course. He was pretty perfect, and we never got it straightened out. So when I decided to write this book, one of the things that happens to older people when they write about young children is we go back into our own childhood and remember how we felt. And one of the things I remembered was how much I loved this boy, and what I also remembered was how my mother and sister, when I was heartbroken, said that I was too young to be heartbroken, and I didn't really feel that way. And that was, I mean, as opposed to this story, that was such an important occasion to me that I held on to it. And when I write for children, I always remember, if they say they feel some way, they really do. You're not too young to be heartbroken. You're not too young to feel great joy. You're not too young to feel anything. In fact, I think